And welcome to another TerranScapes new release. This video showcases a series of pieces that have been developed based on the Hirst Arst temple mold, I believe it's called. And the mold produces Roman columns, or I think, in this case, I think they also pass very nicely as a Greek column, and some smooth bases for pedestals, a new arch, and some dressed top pieces as well. When I saw this mold, I decided that I thought it would be best to produce it as a set, although I may offer pieces of this set individually on the site. But I wanted to shoot it all as a set because in my mind this was all meant to accompany each of the pieces to provide an overall feel for an entire table. The pieces consist of a large arch sort of entryway piece. And what I've done here, just to give you a little perspective for each of these pieces, is I've added in some statues. I got some, and I'll show you a close-up of these in a little bit. I got these statues, I can't remember what manufacturer makes them, but they're based on Greek heroes. And I was looking at some Roman pieces, which I thought I would originally theme this as, and I really liked the Greek motif a little bit better with some of their headdresses and some of the mythical figures as well. And so I decided to roll with that. Of course, you know, in subsequent iterations of these pieces, these statues could be substituted with any miniatures that you liked, and you could ship them to me or let me know which ones to purchase, and those could always be added. So back to the lineup. So this large archway, which features columns around the side, columns in the back, and give you a 360 there of that. It features what I consider to be the actual temple itself, the sort of an iconic statue that people have come to worship, and that features more of an open air feeling with columns around the back. And two sets of 4 columns put together, which can be used to provide sort of a defining edge to the overall temple area on the game board. Two sets of two of those pieces, I should say, and then I made 2 small statues, 2 small pedestal pieces that could feature a couple statues prominently, so that you could arrange them to. And if you've been to any Greek ruins or you know anything about that time period, they often had numerous statues lining prominent areas, as these represent some of the lesser heroes or some of the lesser gods or whatnot that people would worship along the way to the central figure. The original layout I had envisioned, and let me set it up real quick here, although this is an incredibly cramped space to show this, but I'll set it up in my general idea. So the original idea was to have the large entryway where visitors would pass through, and then as they entered the courtyard of the main temple area, be flanked with 2 of these statues, sort of greeting the visitors. Then it would be defined again more towards the sides with some of the standing columns, which give it sort of an enclosed feel in the middle of the temple worship area. And then the final altar with the large statue greeting the visitors for their final worship. The figures here, just to give you a sense of scale, these miniatures are 28mm scale models. So these are the same as most gaming systems that if you play in, you know, Games Workshop Fantasy or I think, oh gosh, I can't remember. There's several game systems in that scale close to it. This, of course, would work for 30mm down to 25mm as well. And a couple of the things just to highlight some of the more prominent features is that once I finished them, I felt like it just felt a little bottom heavy with some of the foliage and having the pieces rise up out of it. So I went back and I added some vines to them. So I added some vines, some foliage to them, and I've seen, well, let me give you a close-up of this and we can talk a little bit more about the vines and the statues. So here you can see the vines that are crawling up the column, and as this is my first attempt at vines, I wanted to make sure I keep them simple, but I wanted to make them realistic. And one of the things I noticed is some people have been adding actual leaves to their vines in some of the websites and different kinds of modeling techniques, and while they look great individually,
they don't really match, I think, the overall foliage that might be surrounding them. And here, when you see these bushes are meant to emulate leaves without really allowing the eye to discern individual leaves. So I wanted to carry that same feel up the vines as they crawled up the columns by adding clumps of foliage along the way that utilized the same scale of vegetation. I also tried to make sure that the vines had an organic feel, having them crawl and lope around on the bases and wind up the columns in various branching method. And here we get a good look at one of the statues that's included in the set. The statues have a fantastic detail. These miniatures were really nice when they arrived, and I was a little unsure as it was a brand I hadn't purchased from before, but I painted them to match the pedestals and the other pieces around using a stone motif to give them that marble look. But really, these could be painted in any color scheme. If people wanted, metals, they could be silver, gold, bronze. Any of those are options for changing these for future iterations. And here you can see the archway piece again, and this gives you sort of a nice model's eye view of it. It's a rather large piece. And, I just want to give credit to Bruce Hirst for providing templates for the use of his molds. And while I've tried to follow some of his templates for some of the pieces, I've modified a few of them to give them more of my own feel and hopefully make them, just a little bit more interesting and a little more diversified. And here you get a nice shot of the vines and the statue on this piece as well, which I think adds a lot to the pieces as a whole.
So for some final thoughts on the pieces, just to let you know, all of them have been based on hardboard. This is eighth of an inch thick, so it gives a fairly good rigid mounting platform for it. And I've put these all on some hardboard so that I could dress them all up with a little bit of foliage. I felt like, especially if you're going to have vines crawling up it, if you're going to, be able to sort of give it a feel where it's grounded, I wanted to put it on a base, and then therefore I widened the base a little bit to be able to give me some room to make it feel more natural rather than just trimming it like a frame and then having a couple small scatterings of vegetation around it. I wanted to have some fun with it and be able to add in some colored spots and give it something that looks a little bit more... Well, I guess the feeling I was originally going for is something that's been recently abandoned, perhaps in the last 10 years. Oftentimes, these kinds of pieces are depicted as complete ruins with fallen columns, and I felt like that's been done before, and really, why is everything in the old world ruined? These people have been building things, and perhaps we could get a glimpse of something that's only been recently abandoned, or a care has started to fall in just a little bit by the wayside, so they haven't been cleaning off the vines, but perhaps it's still in use. Of course, if you really wanted something to be ruined per se, that could always be done as well as a modification to the set. I found it pretty challenging with these pieces, if you've worked with Hirst Arst before, because these pieces are meant to be relatively smooth, as though they were a single block or carefully created by artisans who have tight joins. That requires quite a bit of sanding. I did go back in and I tried to fill a lot of the gaps. I tried to make sure that it looks like it's uniform even when there's different kinds of materials implemented with the plaster. And I think overall this took quite a bit more time than some of the other pieces just for that little final detail finishing work. And so, this set, because it's large, it encompasses a lot of pieces. This is not necessarily going to be a set that can fit in everybody's budget, and that's okay, because sometimes I just need to take something and really tweak it out and have a lot of fun with it, and that'll work for some people and it might not work for others. But hopefully when you come to the TerranScapes website, you're going to see that there's a lot of things that are offered there, and some things can hopefully fit in anybody's budget. But it's nice every now and then to take something and really push it out and get something that looks a little fancier and gives me a chance to explore some other techniques as well, which you'll see implemented in future pieces. Expect to see some vines on a couple of the upcoming ruins, definitely, as I work with some of the more of the Hirst Arst kits. So, before I ramble on too long, I hope you've enjoyed taking a look at this set. And of course, I encourage you, as always, to go to the TerranScapes website so that you can take a look at the detailed photos of it and see some of the other pieces that are similar, some of the other Hirst Arst kits that I offer. And I am going to be, I'm sort of announcing it now, I'm going to be expanding the Hirst Arst section of the website. I'm going to create a page so that I can sell individual casts. I'm actually sitting on several molds that I haven't gotten a chance to build yet, and I've been hesitant in the past to put up kits that I haven't built, because if I haven't put it together, then how can I give tips and recommendations to people when they're putting it together themselves. And I'd rather not just use standard photos from other people's work. I'd rather show you exactly how I finish it, exactly what level of detail you can expect in terms of quality of craftsmanship, painting style, and whatnot. So I'll be offering individual casts from molds that won't be offered as complete kits, but of course you can buy the molds, the casts in as many quantities and as many varieties as you desire to put together your own kits, and so you'd be able to replicate if you felt like a little bit more creative and your budget was a little bit tighter, you'd be able to recreate this set yourself using some of those casts. So I hope you've enjoyed taking a look at this video, and as always I encourage you to subscribe to TerranScapes so you can make sure that you catch some of the upcoming releases that will be coming out, as well as updates on some of the custom projects that are currently underway. Thanks for watching.